appreciate everything that you're doing at the Fire and Emergency Services Institute. As Jerry said, I serve as the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Senate Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee under Chairman Mike Regan, who represents parts of Cumberland and York counties. And as Jerry said, the SR6 resolution that came from our committee back in 2017, and ultimately in November of 2018, the SR6 Commission issued 92 recommendations under 27 headings. A good deal of the report focused on recruitment and retention. And personally here, I believe that if you don't reach an individual by the time they turn 18, we're going to lose them, and I think that's true for, the military. I think that's true here for the fire and EMS world. I mean, certainly there's some folks that come in later in life, but for the most part, you're not, if you miss them by the time they turn 18, by the time they graduate, you're not going to get them back. This past year, the House and Senate passed and the governor signed into law House Bill 1522. It's now Act 22 of 2020, which removes one of the barriers to becoming a junior firefighter. That is having to undergo any training standards by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR. Junior firefighters will still need to achieve this training standard set by the state fire commissioner. But we were able to take out, one outdated training provision in that law. I'd like to commend Representative Torrin Eckert for taking the lead on that legislation. And while it was making its way through the legislative process, House Bill 1522, there was just some discussion about removing some of the other impediments to becoming a junior firefighter, namely to permit live indoor fire training with parental consent. Unfortunately, there was not an appetite by the administration to look at the issue at that point, going beyond just taking out the DCNR aspect. I was hopeful that we could get there, but I was happy that we were at least able to get the bill done as it was. I do appreciate as well as what PFE, the Fire Institute, did as well with the survey. And it's my hope that today's conversation can help get the consensus behind the effort to address this issue a little bit more holistically and hopefully advance legislation in the near future. Want to also point out there's another bill that's floating around, Senate Bill 331. It would establish 3 pilot programs between higher education institutions and secondary institutions, one in the east, one in the central, and one in the west. 3 pilots to teach fire training. This bill is now on the House Education Committee. It had passed the Senate earlier this year, and it's now over in the House. And we're hopeful that this might be one of the bills that gets done this fall. So again, I want to thank Jerry for allowing me to be a part of this. Unfortunately, I've got a bolt right after this, but I'll be happy to address any questions that come from this after this meeting. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nate. I appreciate that. Frank, you want to make a statement?
Sure. Hi, I'm Frank Sangari. I want to thank everybody for their interest. This is a hot subject where I'm at. I'm in Schuylkill County. We have 102 volunteer fire companies and dwindling juniors. This is the rest of the Commonwealth. I am currently your statewide advisory board chairman. I have been in that position for 7 years. I'm also the president of Fire Chiefs in Schuylkill County for 30 years. I am a 47-year veteran of the fire service and 37 of those years as a fire chief. And I can speak for my individual fire company. In my career, all but 5 people have gone through the junior program, and it is painful for me to wait for them to turn 18 between Mod 3 and Mod 4 and get their burn-in. Although I have second thoughts on sending them in live fire, I am 100% in favor of training under the age of 18 in a controlled atmosphere. So thank you everybody for participating, and I hope we can run with this. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Frank. I certainly appreciate that. So what we'll do is we're going to go down through. I'd just like you each to introduce yourself. I will call your name, state your years of experience in the fire service, where you're from, what does your community look like, what county you're from, brief description of your organization, and any other pertinent details that you will feel free of talking. Once that's done, we're going to start with a roundtable discussion. I hope you had a chance to take a look at some of the minutes that I sent out or the surveys, but then we'll go back down through that list of everyone again, and you kind of outline where you think we need to go. If somebody has a question or something like that, just send a message to the chat. I think we've been doing pretty good with that, or you could certainly email it to me while I'm standing right by my other computer. So I'm going to start with Andy Marsh. If you want to kick it off, please.
Good evening, everyone. Andy Marsh. I'm with the Asheville Volunteer Fire Department in Allegheny County. As of last week, I'll have 40 years in the fire service, 2 of them as a junior firefighter. I joined back in August of 1980. Back then, it was a robust junior fire service. Now, not so much. Our department has about 25 members on its roster. About half of them are active. We run anywhere, with the exception of this year, we've been running between 400 and 600 calls. We currently have 2 junior firefighters in our department, and that's where we're at today.
Thank you, Andy. Next one on my list is Bill Wiegeman. Just please pronounce your name and let us know where you're from.
Sure. How you doing? Bill Wigman from Montgomery Township in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I started my volunteer fire service career in 1996 as a junior with a company in Lower Bucks County, and recently was hired as the Director of Fire Services for Montgomery Township, which is a combination fire department. We have 4 full-timers, 16 part-timers, and about 40 volunteers. I grew up in Lower Bucks and was a volunteer at the Lower Southampton Fire Department until I moved up to Montgomery. I was the volunteer fire chief here for 5 years, and then recently accepted the position as the Director of Fire Services.
Bill, you also have some interesting background in your career working with youth. Is that correct?
Yeah, I before I became the Director of Fire Services, I was a juvenile probation officer in Bucks County. I worked primarily in when I started my career in Lower Bucks, and then I ended my career in Upper Bucks before leaving. Worked with all different types of populations. Worked with juvenile fire setters, firefighter, arsonist, and arsonist in general. So. Have been working with kids since I was in scouting a long time ago. So,
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And if anybody has any, again, your background and experience as a volunteer firefighter or career firefighter is important, but the success of this type of program, and I know some of you have education backgrounds and are active school administrators and or teachers, are very important to bring that up. So next one up is Brad Harvey.
All right, can everybody hear me? Hopefully. Yep. So my name is Brad Harvey. I'm with the Continental Fire Company in Danville, Pennsylvania, which is in Montour County. I started in the fire service when I was 14, so about 18 years ago, 16 years ago. Went up through the ranks as a junior and slowly became captain of the station that I'm at now. I have, I believe, 4 active juniors at my station at this time. And I just feel that there are some changes that could be made to the junior firefighting program to better help not only sustain the junior program, but also sustain our, the fire service in general.
Thank you very much. Charles Strauss is next.
Thanks. Chuck Strauss. So I'm the Assistant Fire Chief of the O Fire Company, just south of York, Pennsylvania, in York County. So we have part-time paid drivers during the day and about 20 volunteers, about 10 of which are active. Till recently, we didn't have any volunteers, any juniors. So I've been doing this for 8 years now, so 2 as a junior. Currently, we have 4 junior firefighters at our station. one of which is my son. So makes me extra interested in the topic. But yeah, I agree. I don't know about the whole live fire training piece, but I think there's some other pieces of the program that could be looked at as well.
Thank you very much. Ellen's iPhone. You're up, Ellen. Need to unmute there.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry. My name is Ellen Yarbrough. I'm from Delaware County. I run with South Media Fire Company, which is part of Nether Providence Township. We run about 400 calls a year. I'm the outlier here. I joined 5 years ago following my then cadet son. I've been a captain for 8 months now, and I teach high school. So a few years ago, I started a program for cadets and juniors from 3 companies that serve our school district, or that exist within the boundaries of our school district, to earn academic credit for their service to the volunteer fire companies. So this year, I think between the 3 companies, I have about 7 juniors I'm working with, and I'm pushing hard to up those numbers.
Thank you. Ethan Holmes.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ethan Holmes. I'm a volunteer with Newmanstown Volunteer Fire and Ambulance Association in Mill Creek Township, Lebanon County. I've been involved in the fire service since 1994, so it puts me at my 26th year. I work and do some instruction as a non-suppression instructor for the state through Bucks and both Hack, and work full-time as a career captain in Wyomissing, Berks County. Not sure what else you'd like me to add, but glad to be here.
That's good. Very good. John Hawksworth.
Hello, everybody. John Hawksworth from Evansburg, Pennsylvania, Cambria County. I run with the Dauntless Fire Company. I'm retired police chief at UPMC Altoona Hospital. I have 40 plus years in the service, 30 plus years as an instructor. I started the junior fire program in my fire department 21 years ago when my son was 14 years old. He now has 15 years as a career firefighter, and we started with eight juniors at that time. 4 of them are career firefighters. One's my fire chief now, and one is a safety officer for a steel company. The other 2 just kind of passed away out of the fire service. I've been very active. I wrote the program for junior fire program and got it involved in my county association, where we actually teach a junior fire program. And I'm proud to say my son and one of my other first juniors took over, and they teach it now. So I'm really involved with the junior program.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Thank you very much. Jim Catino. Try your unmute there, Jim.
How about now?
I think you're good.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I got a new computer, and they bought me this wonky headset. So you have to turn it on and off. I don't want to use a headset. Okay, anyway, folks, I come at this from a couple different directions. My current full-time job, I am the administrative director of the Northumberland County Career and Technology Center. Previously, for 13 years here, I opened and taught the Protective Services program. It was the first 3-year program in the Commonwealth. I also, on the volunteer side, was a company officer for 14 years, a chief officer for 8 years with the City of Shamokin Fire Bureau. State fire instructor, adjunct faculty, fire science at Hack, and looking forward to some good conversation. Thanks.
Absolutely. Joe Joe Whites. Joe Whites. Am I saying
Joe
that correct?
Whites.
Joe
Yes.
Whites. Go for it, Joe.
All right. I'm relatively new to the fire service. I am 4 years, about to go into my 5th. I am the president of Tunkhannock Township Volunteer Fire Company in Monroe County in northeastern Pennsylvania. I joined with one daughter. Now both of my daughters, one is still in the junior program, one is now in the last module. She just turned 18. And I have 2 sons that now are waiting to join. And we run somewhere between 150 to 250 calls depending on the year. And I'm just really looking forward to doing whatever I can do to expand the training opportunities for our juniors. We have 2 juniors currently in our program, and like I said, we have 2 that are now going through the 4th module of interior.
That's excellent. Excellent to hear. And there's nothing wrong with being in the fire service for a short period of time. In my book, sometimes it's better to have some short timers and long timers involved in the program. Speaking of long timer, I'd like you to introduce John Breve. John, are you there? Take your headphone or take your thing off mute. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I guess I'm the dinosaur of the group. I've been in the fire service since 1967 when I went in as a junior firefighter. I'm retired as a captain out of the federal fire department, and I put some time in working with the Department of Health and FEMA. Currently, I'm with the Campbelltown Volunteer Fire Company in Lebanon County, which is the company I actually started with. It's a small rural community, predominantly rural, but we're increasing quite a bit more with residential and some light industry. What I'd like to do, I've had help run some junior programs in the past when I was a deputy fire chief with Palmyra Fire Department. And what I'd like to see is learn some ways how we can get these younger folks interested in the fire service, and ways we can incorporate the public school system into assisting us with getting these folks interested in the fire service by whatever means. I'm encouraged when I hear that there are some programs currently underway to do that, and some legislation underway to assist with it. So I'm looking forward to working with this group and hoping we can get more off the ground. Thank you.
Absolutely. Next up is Jordan Kramer.
All right, hey guys, my name is Jordan Kramer. I'm with Peters Township Fire Department, which is in Washington County in southwestern PA. We have approximately 23,000 residents and 20 square miles, about 1,500 calls a year. We're a combination of career and volunteer firefighters. We have approximately 20 career firefighters and 30 volunteers that are pretty active. I've been in the fire service for 11 years, started as a junior firefighter, and then worked my way up. I'm now an employee of Peters Township. However, I handle a lot of our community outreach, our public education, and our recruitment and retention. So I've spent a lot of time with our junior firefighters and our junior program, and we're looking to enhance it and change a couple different things. So looking forward to working with this group.
Absolutely. Welcome. Next up is Craig Herman.
Hey there, everybody. Craig Herman. Live in Manchester, Pennsylvania, which is in York County. I'm president of the Union Fire Company here. We're all volunteer. Mix of residential and industry, commercial. Although the industry and the commercial aspect has taken off within the last couple of years. I've been in the fire service, counting my junior years now, 33 years. I started when I was 13. So if it wasn't for starting out as a junior, you know, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Career-wise, I work in the fire commissioner's office, doing public education and the NFIR stuff. You know, even though it's in my family, you know, officially didn't become a junior till I was 13, but I was always hanging around the firehouse probably since I could walk. If it wasn't for that aspect, like I said, I wouldn't be where I'm at as far as my career and all that these days. And I think there is a lot of stuff that we can probably come up with to get more interest with younger people and hold that interest and, keep them so that I think it was Mr. Hawksworth that said about, people staying in and becoming chiefs of departments and career firefighters and all that. So looking forward to this.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. Next one is Paul, and it's probably Paul Abbott, correct?
Yes, it is. Thanks for having me. I've been involved in fire and EMS for the last 44 years. I spent 4 years in the Air Force as a firefighter. I spent with my current fire department is the Rochester Fire Department in central Beaver County in western Pennsylvania. We actually merged with Rochester Borough. I was part of Rochester Township. We merged with Rochester Borough 6 or 7 years ago, and now we cover the three municipalities of the 3 Rochesters in the central part of the state. We got about 35 guys, and probably more than half of that have come up through the junior program, including our chief. I was proud to see him work his way up to take that position here just recently. I also serve as the vice president of the Beaver County Firefighters Association. We represent 47 fire departments in Beaver County. We have put on 2 essentials programs. One was last year, one was this year, and obviously with all the craziness that's gone on, our essentials program has been put on hold, and it's quite a shame. But we've had numerous discussions within the association about the juniors and with the training and stuff. So I'm looking forward to also to working with the group and taking back some information to the fire departments in my county.
Thank you very much, and nice to meet you. And finally, Randy O'Donnell.
Good evening, everyone. Randy O'Donnell, Chief Shippensburg Fire Department. We have 3 companies that operate out of 2 stations. We have 107 square miles, about 35,000 residents. We're divided by 2 counties, Franklin County and Cumberland County, so it makes for a unique situation for us. We've had strong junior member programs throughout the past, some up, some down. We have a program in our high school for our high school students, Emergency Service Club. It's been successful. We developed a program several years ago for Child's Dream. Kids from 11 to 13 come in and learn about firefighting, try to encourage them. And I'm also chairman of the Franklin County Fire Chiefs, where we have a program, Junior Fire Academy. We bring fire or junior members from all over the state, come to our academy for the week at the fire training center at Franklin County. And we get about 40 junior members from out the state. And outside, actually, we had one from outside the country last year that showed up. It was very good, great program. 2 years ago, we started through the tech school. We started a fire rescue program where they come out and they get their firefighter 1, they'll get their EMT. So we're really excited about the training aspect of this. I am one that's in favor of a supervised live burn for the junior members once they get to that 17 years of age, with parental consent and the right supervision. I think it'll be exciting. These guys training on the street, day 1 running. And I'm really excited to be a part of this group.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So will be the first of a few other meetings. First of all, is there anybody that I missed? Good. Because again, the last meeting that I was on like this, we had like 48 people, and it was quite the challenge. And thank God I did not have to facilitate that. So what I'm going to do is the part of the roundtable discussion is what we'll do is I'd like you to think about one important thing that you think we need to change or improve. Okay, one important thing or something that you'd like to see changed in regards to the current junior firefighting law in Pennsylvania, or if you have a vision, it doesn't need to even be in the law right now. I don't want you to, don't get offended if I cut you off a little bit, because everybody has to talk and we don't want to be here for 4 hours. That's, again, because we're going to have continued meetings throughout as we get this together. So again, what will happen with this and the outcome is it's been requested from Nate, who was on earlier. Some of the interest that what was very interesting when this came up was how this junior thing started. There was not a lot of people that were interested in doing anything until House Bill 1580 or 1588 started, and one of I think it was a senator from the northeastern part of the Pennsylvania put an amendment in to allow junior firefighters, 16 and 17-year-olds, to go in live fires and go in on calls and training. So that set off a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes. And we sent a survey out, our organization, and I had over 1,000 people respond. And it was my greatest social media conversation since I've been here. So lots of opinions, and the survey was there. And that once the staff saw that from the Senate, they thought this is something that we need to continue to talk about. And again, with Pennsylvania's organizational structure, we all know that not every organization is going to be able to, have paid firefighters. We need to have a consistent supply of new firefighters. Some will come in later age, like some of you mentioned. And also in my volunteer fire company, I've recruited people later in age, and that's worked well. But so that sets the stage. This is just step one in the process. Some of you, we are going to probably get to a point where we're going to do some House or Senate testimony for a committee. And I will be reaching out to some of you to work at a different level directly with the lawmakers, because it's very important when it comes directly from you. I'm a statewide association. I see them all the time. They want to hear from the constituents. So with that, we will go down through. I'd like you to, again, state, what's one big thing that you would like, and you're going to hear, if you hear something that you like from someone else, maybe you want to add to that. So same thing, Andy, we'll kick it off with you. And you could, if somebody doesn't know anything, you could pass. So Andy, go ahead. And I will be taking notes as we talk here.
I think one of the areas that we can start with is easing up the time constraints of the junior firefighters. Opening it up past 7 p.m., opening up a little bit, maybe go towards 11 p.m. as a general rule. Most of these teenagers, 14 and up, they're probably staying up that late anyway, doing video games and whatnot. So I think that part of the law could probably change. Certainly, I'm okay with live fire training with parental consent, but I'm not about any live fire participation other than that. Thank you.
Okay, Andy. Bill.
Yeah, I think we could definitely look at curfew. I think that, like he said, that they're playing video games. I mean, as long as there's some structured, positive time, maybe parents would prefer their kids to be out at the firehouse if it's a positive experience. Many of our juniors have to leave early, so there is some, training restrictions. I also think that the junior firefighter should be able to finish their Fire 1 completely and get their certification so that they can hit the street, like was previously said, when they turn 18. I don't think that they should be going in fires, but I do think they should be able to live train as long as it's at a reputable institution. Maybe not have them in acquired structures if anybody's still doing those, but at a training center, parental consent. But I think it would be a nice accomplishment. At our place, we have a lot of juniors who graduate high school, but they can't finish their Fire 1 because they're waiting to turn 18. So it would be nice to have that all wrapped up so that they could kind of progress naturally on their 18th birthday, they're ready to go and not have to wait until there's a burn. So that would be helpful, I think.
Bill, as a follow-up to that, could you kind of explain what you mean by structured positive time? What you know, when we talk about extending the time, what do you mean by that?
I think that you know, I think as professionals in the field, volunteer, you know, that I think that parents, and I have kids, and I know most of you guys do, expect that when their kids come up to the firehouse, they're safe. And that they're not hanging around the kitchen table just as we like to do in the fire service, talking shop or whatever, but that there's a purpose. I think if there's a purpose for them being there, and that we're structuring the time, then we're going to be able to enhance our recruitment efforts. You know, I worry that kids get bored. We're in a society, obviously, where I think everybody probably has ADHD. You know, like myself. But we have kids come up that are, you know, used to moving or want to be involved or coming up to get physical activity or whatever it is. And then if we're just leaving them to, you know, get food and hang around the table, that's important stuff. That social, cultural part of the fire service and the kitchen table is super important. I understand that. But I also think that if parents are entrusting us to have their kids, that time is structured, it's positive. They're not, you know, they're not getting in trouble. Boredom, you know, breeds trouble. So I think that, yeah, if we want to extend the curfew, there has to be something in place. It's not just hang out all night at the firehouse. There's some type of mentoring program, some type of maybe task book that needs to be completed, something that is constructive and helps them have this supervised time.
And for those of you guys that maybe are unfamiliar with the task book is a concept of check-off skills. The easiest thing that you might know is like a firefighter 1 check-off skills, but it goes into more deeply, you know, that's done in a lot of different professions in fire service across the United States. So thank you very much, Bill. Next one up, Brad Harvey.
Okay. One of the things that I obviously with everybody else touched on it, the time constraints. I think that in a world where, you know, especially with the way that kids are with, you know, running the streets and, you know, participating in after school activities that are having them out late at night, I think that we should put more on, say, the parents to be able to, you know, basically give the kids permission to be able to stay later. You know, obviously goes up to the station at 3 o'clock in the morning to come to a call, then no, they shouldn't be here. But, you know, if a 16 or 17-year-old has his parents' permission in the middle of summer, they're on summer vacation, you know, there's a call in the middle of the night or something like that, something we can address as far as, you know, having the ability to give parents more responsibility of getting permissions. Another one of the issues that I have found is with the essentials class, and I know that it's already been brought up a couple different times, but the fact that, you know, I can have a junior firefighter go up to Mod 3 and then they have to wait till they turn 18 to complete the training. I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, a junior firefighter should do live fire. I mean, even live fire training, which I'm not completely against, but I just think that as far as obtaining the classes that they need to basically become an interior firefighter when they turn 18 should be more feasible and not having to wait till they turn 18 just to finish the classes. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Brad. Charles Strauss.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with what everyone else was saying as far as the times. So, you know, I really think we need to look at the times they're allowed, even for 14 and 15-year-olds. I know my son, even when he was 14, playing school sports, there'd be times he wouldn't get home till 10 or 11 at night from, you know, school activities. But after 7 o'clock during the school year, he can't go on fire calls. So, you know, I think that could be looked at. As far as the live fire training, I would be in favor of it for 17-year-olds. My concern is 16-year-olds. I'd be nervous about that and the maturity level and whatnot. But I think a 17-year-old and having them achieve that so that when they do turn 18, they're ready to go is probably a really good idea.
Yeah, and that'd be good. I'd be interested in hearing feedback from fire instructors once we get to that point. Again, there's that concept of the 14, 15-year-old versus the 16 and 17-year-old, and some of you guys that are involved in education are more experienced than me in talking many of those details and maturities and things like that. But again, one of the most important things is giving good, reasonable advice to lawmakers, and that's ultimately what my goal is to get a consensus on some bullet points, some concepts. Again, in what could be done, and there is the mood to change things. I can tell you that it can happen. So don't ever think that it will never happen. So thank you very much for that feedback, Ellen.
Yeah, I have got opinions that are in line with folks about being a little more flexible with time that kids are able to participate, and to an extent save for a live fire. Similar feelings about the trainings before 18. It'd be interesting, or it'd be nice if things were more in line with what the state allows kids to do with driver's license. And that they could be out driving, but they can't be at the firehouse. So that doesn't really, I don't know, that doesn't really make sense sometimes. My interest is in, I think the most important thing for us, knowing that we're trying to grab this little slice of the pie from kids and their limited time, is that we need to develop some sort of liaison program with high schools. That's something that's consistent across the board. And that enables these kids to not have to pick and choose between a class or a VOTEC program and their college prep academic load, where they can still get that recognition for what they do for us. And I know with COVID and the fact that we're online and sports and clubs are canceled, I'm really making an aggressive effort to reach out to our school and to our students. And I would encourage others to do the same right now. I think strike while the iron's hot.
I'm going to ask you to go in just to a little more detail on what you do. You mentioned about the credits that they get, and you're in an academic high school, correct? Is not to say that it's not an academic high school, but you're in a regular high school versus what Jim and another guy that I asked to be on here is like a protective services programs. Could you explain what you do with how they get credits for what you do?
Right. So I'm a classroom teacher, but because I joined the fire service with my son and recognized what he was doing for the fire department, how much time he spent, and then taking classes for his Fire One and whatnot, it didn't really make sense that he's not getting kind of rewarded to this in a way that would set him up for college admissions. So I started this pilot program that really is it's incredibly simple, and there's really no reason for a school to say no. And that's simply like an elective course, an academic-based elective course, pass-fail, because again, it's hard for us to have consistent assessments and things like that. And the students record every 2 weeks the amount of time they spent in service to the community, whether it's fire prevention, education, calls, trainings, or classes. And that's signed off by chief officer. And then that's submitted every 2 weeks to their guidance counselor and signed off by the principal, who oversees that and confirms that they are doing this program. So that's what I do, and people keep saying, oh, you have to share your information, but it's really simple to do, and the parents are game for it as well. And it works for colleges. My own son was given scholarship monies in recognition for his community service. And we didn't even ask for it. He just wrote it on his essays.
That's very good. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I lost track, so you guys are going to have to keep me in line here. Did I speak with Brad Harvey already or not? I spoke with Charles. Ethan is next. Ethan, you're up.
All right. So my big concern is the training aspect with getting the 17-year-olds the training that they need to meet the Fire 1 skills, so that when they come on as a senior member, they're capable to do those skills on day one. What I'm more into looking into is the mentoring aspect. Having a member of the department that's sponsoring the junior firefighter to go to the training, be there with them when they're doing the live fire training to guide them and further build that bond and that tie to the department so we can keep them as senior members.
It's a good idea, Ethan. I kind of get what you mean there, and that's I understand what you're talking about, that 101 thing, so one-on-one thing. So keep that in mind. And again, I'm going to ask all of you. You know, a lot of you have put some of this stuff in the document to me, so I don't want to lose that. So John Hawksworth.
Yeah, agree with what they're saying, but the one big thing that I look at as being an instructor also and doing the essentials, 14 and 15-year-olds, they're tough. They're tough to get going. When I started the program 21 years ago with our 8 people, their dads and moms were already a member of the department. And it was a heck of a lot easier doing a class when mom and dad was in the class with them. And I really enjoy when I do an essentials class that a father comes with their son or a mother comes with a son to take the class, or a daughter, whatever it might be. It's just tough for that 14 and 15-year-old to keep them enthused. And my department's kind of lean a little bit that, 14, 15 wants to join, a parent has to join with them. We kind of maybe get a senior member and a junior member at the same time, hit 2 birds with 1 stone. The other thing that's tough is when you do the Mod 1, the first thing we actually do as a skill station for a junior firefighter is something they can't do until they're 18, and that's direct traffic. It's kind of funny that that's one of the first skills they do, but they can't use that for a long time to be out in traffic. So those are just a little bit of my pet peeves.
Thank you very much, John. That was good. And just to let you guys know, in my travels across Pennsylvania, there are departments that have, because of a variety of reasons, have stopped their junior firefighting program because no one wanted to be in charge of it. That's number one. Number two, I've also heard of that join with the parent. In my department, for those that age, we are encouraging that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong or anything like that, but I do know that, people not wanting to deal with all the hassles with this and, scandals that have occurred across Pennsylvania in regards to this. Unfortunately, those things kind of overshadow some things at times, but that was good feedback on there, John. Jim Catino.
Okay, first I'll expand on something Bill had said about structured time. In my neck of the woods, and we have, Shamokin has six fire stations, 5 of which take junior members. The rescue company does not, for obvious reasons. But oftentimes these kids are hanging out at the firehouse, unsupervised. And if you're familiar with coal region firehouses, several of them have clubs in them. And when I say clubs, I mean bars. And I have a huge problem with kids hanging out unsupervised in the firehouse when there's a beer garden literally 3 feet away. We had just up the road here, we had a chief officer arrested for having sex with a 14-year-old girl in the firehouse. So there's a lot of unsupervised hanging out going on at the stations that concerns me. And then the thing that really concerns me, and this is going to be unpopular probably with most of you, is I am against junior firefighters participating during school hours. Now, it's in the current law that they are not permitted to go to calls during the school day. However, it's very vague, and there's been multiple instances of students who, well, I'll go to cyber school, so then I don't have to go to school, so I can run calls all day. Okay, and while that's nice, and it may, put a warm body on a fire truck, it's really not doing much for that child's development, his educational, academic development, later in life. So I think there needs to be some clarification. When you're supposed to be in school, whether it's cyber, homeschooled, whatever, during the normal school day, you don't go out on the fire truck. You belong in school doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that's my one pet peeve. And again, it's probably not popular with everybody, but I think education has to take precedence over this.
Thanks, Jim. Very good. Very interesting. And there is some schools that let people go. I was surprised to learn about that too. And actually in the Berwyn area, I don't know if that was very recent that told me that.
Yeah, the law says that you cannot respond during school hours. But again, we've got lots of kids who, well, I'll just go to cyber, then I can run calls all day. And I don't think a 15, 16-year-old kid should be making a decision like that, and missing school.
And again, that concept of the beer garden and the club and you guys that are on here, Pennsylvania is diverse. It's a diverse fire service. And, again, I used to work in the insurance industry for one of the large fire insurance organizations in the United States. And, there is risk involved in these type of things if they're unsupervised. So, okay, next up, Joe.
All right, now we'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum. I actually took part in this because I wanted to have a voice saying that our juniors should be able to take part in any training up to and including live fire. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, my children are homeschooled and they actually get credit, which gets turned into the school board for the classes that they take as part of the department. Secondly, my daughter is probably one of the only people in her personnel file with a letter from her mother saying, I want you to do everything legally allowed to prepare my daughter for the fire service, which was prompted from both her, myself, and a couple of other people taking on some very physically exerting activities. And the board pulled back on some of those activities for the juniors. And my wife said, absolutely not. You need to prepare her for the service. So those are my two reasons. And I absolutely am a believer that they should be able to take as many courses as they want to take and they're able to take. Because that's the time of life when you can take those classes. When you have a career and a job and all these other things, it's very difficult to have people take that time to go back and get these classes.
Thank you very much. That's and again, that has been, for example, that concept of this is the time to take these classes. One of the members of the House of Representatives had he has some volunteer experience, and we all know as life gets busier. Again, there's a lot. I got a lot of pushback on a survey. And I can't really point to one or another about there is just some negativity about it, but there's a lot of positivity about this is the time to take training, as long as, again, structured, balanced, those type of things. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All
right. John, brief.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening. I like the idea of what Ellen said. They're incorporating credit for the things that the folks are doing in the fire service to get credit on their school records and also get some college credit. I think the law needs to be a little more specific as to getting the school districts involved in the program. because they have the kids there and have their attention, and that's the place to still be interested in them, I believe. And that's what I'm going to kind of finish on right now. So, but I'm interested to hear some of the, and as far as the, I do agree with the 17-year-olds being allowed to go into live fire training as long as they've been properly trained and they're properly supervised at the live fire training. Their training needs to be geared up to that point. Because both my boys went through it, and they had to wait in some cases a couple months before they could finish the module, and then it was hard to get into some classes and things like that. But I think we're on the right track. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and very good. And to be honest with you, that relationship with the school districts, I was involved in brought in about it. You know, my friend Frank Zakari was involved in this also, where they wanted to start a program in a local area, and you know, the Fire Chiefs Association or the Firefighters Association wanted it, and the school district kind of pushed back. Like, I don't call it negative, but they weren't really that interested. And you know, I recommended bringing in some of the municipal authorities to help with this. And you know, the concept of this, you know, people have to understand that, you know, to make initiatives happen, there's got to be a vision. Okay. And there's got to be a vision. That's number one. And number two, you got to have relationships built with key individuals. You know, if the fire department's got a bad reputation in the community and the school district doesn't trust this, that, and the other person, you're going to have a heavy lift. Okay. And if there's a community coalition after that vision of municipal officials, volunteer fire chiefs, community members, and school district officials, maybe, and there is a structured program that could be replicated with a reasonable cost, maybe some of these things could happen. But John, you're correct that I do get reports of, you know, fire departments wanting to get involved, even fire departments that want to start to recruit in the schools, and they're not even permitted to do that for a variety of reasons. So thank you very much. Jordan Kramer, you're up.
Thanks, Jerry. One of the big ones that we see that might be a benefit would be the Module 4, being able to do that under the age of 18 and be able to move on quickly to Firefighter 1 and other classes once they turn 18, since they're so eager to do so. And then one of the other big things for me, as far as if there's some potential for guidance or a partnership with the Department of Education, they would be able to establish best practices for school districts, fire departments, and community to work together, as you mentioned.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Craig Herman.
Where do I want to start? So I do believe that one thing I know for sure is that we can't, or we're never going to be able to draft something or come up with something that's going to fit everywhere in the Commonwealth. So, sitting here thinking, I think that, maybe breaking it down by county or something, to get each county on the same boat would probably be the way to go. As far as other comments and stuff made by others, I do believe that 16, 17-year-olds should get live fire training, as long as it's an approved state course, to local level, not a department burn or anything like that, an actual certificate class. I also think that we could tap the juniors into even helping with fire safety education and community risk reduction, to get them interested. Yeah, it's boring, but I look at some career departments, and I think Philadelphia still does it. The first class in their academy is fire and life safety educator. before, they even start any of the fire stuff or EMS training. So I think maybe taking that concept and running with it would benefit us as well. And I'm not just saying that because of my position, but, we all know, like, when it comes to budgets and all that, the first thing usually cut out of a budget, whether it's a volunteer department or a career department, is fire prevention. So that's a way to, get them involved. And, if they can teach a program in a school, to their peers and all that, the kids might listen a little bit better than they would than having, an older guy. I'm not an older guy, a guy like me going in there and teaching, because they might not feel as comfortable or whatever. Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. As far as the responding during school, I just do want to comment. If they're actually in school, I have mixed feelings about it. But with the cyber stuff, and I'm just going back to dealing with my kids, once school was shut down because of COVID, they had, were to sign on in the morning, to get any instruction or whatever. And then, they would do assignments or whatever, then they were done for a day. They were done like 11, 12 o'clock with instruction and doing their homework and stuff. So, maybe limiting the hours, between, say, 7 and noon, if they're in a cyber learning or whatever, but in the afternoon, once 12 o'clock comes on, then be allowed. That's just one thing I thought about, with that comment that was made, but that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Craig. Paul Abbott.
I'm also in agreement with most of you guys about the 17-year-olds and Mod 4. That's been, in talking to our instructors that teach our essentials class for the county association. That's one of the things, that's their biggest concern, is that you have a 16-year-old that takes it and then has to wait a year or so before they can take Mod 4 and then test for Firefighter 1. They don't retain that knowledge as well sometimes, and it frustrates them. And the comment about the 14 and 15-year-olds being tough to teach, our instructors, they don't want to discourage anybody. But with the regulations and the stuff that our instructors have to go through at a state level, and that responsibility that they have to take, it is tough for 14 and 15-year-olds to do that. In my department, probably the 95% of the kids that came through, their mothers or fathers were in our department, just like some of you guys. And it was easier for them. But we also had a requirement, and we brought kids in from outside when kids wanted to join. As a chief officer, the chief and I would sit down and talk to the parents, and we asked them to allow us to, not necessarily, we want to know how they did at the grading period. So for the first 9 weeks of the school, if the kid did well in school, they were allowed to continue in the fire department. If the kids' grades weren't passing, if they were having trouble in school, we had people in the fire department that would be willing to help with that if the parents wished us to do that. But then they would not be allowed around the fire station until the next grading period, till they brought their grades up. And my fire department also has a club. Thankfully, it was off-site of the fire stations, which was huge. I have strong feelings about having kids around alcohol like that, especially in this day and age. But our juniors, and we don't have any currently, but in the past, our juniors had no access to the fire station. They did not have a key. They did not have the codes to the keypads for the garage doors. They were not allowed in the fire station unless a senior member of the fire department was in that station. So we limited our kids that way. But and then we also had trouble with our schools. The only time we get to see the kids is at Fire Prevention Week. You know, we spend every day during Fire Prevention Week at the school doing different grade levels. We have coloring contests. We have we give kids in the coloring contest for the younger kids, and I think it's grades like 1 through 6. The kids will color something for fire prevention, and then the fire department gets together on our regular work night, and we'll judge those colorings that the kids have submitted. And we pick one from each grade, and then we pick a day, and we give these kids a ride to school in the fire truck. We'll pick them up at home and give them a ride to school in the fire truck. And that's helped, and it's got some interest. But our school district is becoming very, very small. We don't have a lot of kids coming up right now. I think this year there's only going to be 38 kids graduating in 2020. That's all that we had graduating from our school. So we're having trouble with that. But we would like to get into the school, but it's becoming awful tough. Our school district wasn't they weren't real receptive to that. But Ellen, I see that you made that statement about the standards are changing and getting these kids into community service. I think that's a good thing. I applaud that. You know, I'm lucky. My son started out at an early age because of me. He pretty much grew up around the fire service. He was a month old, and I had him riding around in a crash truck when I was in the Air Force, because he was born when I was in the service. So he's been in his blood, and being a proud father, he's a captain in the city of Aliquippa right now, and he's been there for 5 or 6 years. And I'm just hoping that we can come up with a solution to get some more kids involved with this.
Thank you very much, Paul. Randy O'Donnell.
There we go. I like what I've heard from a lot of folks. I'm a big proponent of getting the live fire for the 17-year-olds, and to incorporate these training programs into vocational programs and for when they're in their junior, senior year of high school. I think that's the best way of getting these young men and women trained. I'm fortunate. I have in our department, one of our student counselors for the high school is a member of the fire department. So he keeps us in tune in grades, academics, and things like that. And I do have college students that mentor the kids, will help teach them if they're having trouble with algebra or whatever. They help them in that extra time and stuff in the evenings when we can. But our college enrollment's low as well, so that's a little bit of a challenge. But one thing that struck me, there's a lot of great ideas that I've heard. And I was just wondering, and this would be more for Jerry, is that some of this can't be made into a law, but maybe could be put into a white paper that, you know, good practices, good recommendations, and things like that could be put out throughout the Commonwealth. And some things are easier to put out like that than to actually change the law. But there's a lot of things the law needs to be changed, but I think there's a lot of good practices out there, I think, that can go without having to go through a lot of work through our legislators.
You're absolutely correct, Randy, on that. Absolutely correct on that. The best practices manual for youth programs is the way to go with that. Laws are usually 1 or 2 or 3 sentences. Pennsylvania is not very good at making sweeping reforms in any type of law. It's the incremental approach, and some people believe in that, some people don't. But if we're able to change something very small that would help on a big picture, is very good. Frank Zancari, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Kind of excited to hear everybody's input, especially throughout the Commonwealth. I put 41 years in with the state before I retired, and changing the law is probably the most difficult thing we're going to have to do here. But there's a lot of practices that were brought up. Bill earlier talked about a purpose. I strongly agree that there has to be a purpose to not only look at what the junior program is, but to provide the future of what our kids are going to do, whether they're cyber schooled or they're in high schools. somebody else made a comment in reference to hanging out in the firehouse. These kids go to football practice. They don't get to hang out in the weight room. It's supervised. They don't have keys for the weight room. It's supervised. They can't be there unless there's certain times. So if they do it in high school, so that's competitive for them to be involved and their interest to be involved, we should look at those type programs for the fire service. And I think it should be consistent throughout the Commonwealth, at least if we're going to make it law. I think if we're going to have programs, the white paper works real well for ideas, thoughts, and good practices. But if we're going to put it in law, we need to make sure it's going to work throughout the Commonwealth. Again, I look forward to working with the group. And Jerry, I will add this, the review and the input on this as we meet on the agenda of our quarterly SWAB meetings. So we'll give a report just as we did with the SR6 committee.
Absolutely. So at this time, I'd like to open it up. Does anybody have any open questions or any questions they would like to ask? And you could just go ahead and unmute yourself and talk or raise your hand.
Okay, so a couple things, Jerry. To go back to what I believe Ellen commented earlier about maybe maybe with somebody else about partnering up with the Department of Education, and a lot of our conversation tonight has been dealing with junior firefighters and their education, and that's all well and good, and I completely support that. But we're talking about laws that need to be changed with the Department of Labor and Industry as well. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe that partnership needs to be extended to them as well, and maybe they need to be part of this conversation as well as the Department of Education. To go back with what Craig was saying, when you talk about junior firefighters being a part of fire and life safety education, I actually think that's a great idea. Who better to reach an age group that we have trouble reaching, and that is the teenage group or the grade school level. Pretty much in all the fire prevention programs that I've participated in, we reach preschool through about third grade, and that's probably where we stop at. I don't know if I don't know if everybody else is different out there, but in my neck of the woods, the only fire department that I know of that is in the grade schools at a very regular level is Mount Lebanon. I don't know of any other school districts around my area that do what they do. You know, for the most part, we're reaching a low level of the lower grade levels. So I kind of like what that needs to be said. And curious, and I believe this was Ellen, and Ellen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you talked about some of a discrepancy between, you know, the driving license age and what they were, 16-year-olds can stay out to whatever they do and not be able to stay at the firehouse. And there's some discrepancy also. I was just noticing, I just got onto the State Fire Commissioner's website, and where we can't have junior firefighters in IDLH atmospheres, and so we don't train them to be firefighter 1, but yet we can get them to be certified in hazmat operations at the age of 16. And that's kind of a discrepancy. I mean, if we're certifying junior firefighter, or we can, I don't know that many people have, but we can certify 14-year-old at the hazmat awareness level, and we can certify 16-year-olds at the hazmat operations level, but we're not supposed to send them in IDLH environments. So I think there's an oxymoron that needs to be cleaned up. Why can't we teach somebody and certify somebody to the Pub Ed 1 level at 17 and do what Craig suggested, get them out in the fire prevention community? I just think there's a lot of mixed messages in Pennsylvania.
All good stuff, and absolutely DOE and LNI. They've been part of several processes already, and that last House Bill 1588 actually came out of Labor and Industry Committee, so they're very integrated, involved in these type of things. And that recommendation last time around was a change to the Pennsylvania child labor law, the 16 and 17. That's what that was, the child labor law, and changing. So. So yes, you're correct, Andy, and I'll listen. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, this is John Hawksworth. You say about working with the high schools. Our high school, the seniors have to do a senior project, and they're not allowed to do a repeat of what other people did the year before, except for fire prevention. So fire prevention, and all my junior firefighters over the past couple of years have done their senior project as teaching the second and third graders in the elementary school. And that's really gone over big, that it's, that kid that they ride the bus with or whatever that's teaching their fire school. So it works out pretty good that way.
That's excellent. Excellent, John. Great to hear that. Great to hear that. Another one of those best practices. Anyone else? I hear crickets.
All right. That's
Joe.
That's me. Yes. Both of my daughters are now going to be dual enrolled. One of them actually is going to be going to college with most of her associate's credits being completed in high school. So a lot of those credits and other things could actually function in the same way if applied properly. So I think by opening that up to the junior program and finding a way to integrate that, I think would be very much akin to allowing a dual enrollment in many instances. Now, approaching the live fire and some of the more dangerous training, that might be problematic. But again, I'm a big believer in parents knowing their children and what their capabilities are. So that's just my 2 cents, that we're already allowing some of this education to happen in high school. So.
Absolutely. And I think part of this is, again, learning the best practices and see those type of things. Makes sense. Makes sense. Anybody else have anything to say? So next steps is you will hear from me. I'll be putting this information together, some more of this information together, and probably come up with a couple of concepts. Step one is we've been asked to give feedback to Nate and his committee. Okay, so there's some feedback that will come from us. Some of you may end up testifying for his committee in the future. What I am very happy with is the diverse. I've got rural Pennsylvania, I've got urban, suburban Pennsylvania, I've got Western Pennsylvania. I've got a great group here, from Washington to Beaver County to Allegheny to Delaware County, and the coal region, of course, Jim and Frank. And it is a diverse fire service in Pennsylvania, but there are commonalities that I do see, and I do see the dedication and hard work of the volunteers and the career firefighters and the administration of those organizations every day trying to make a difference. And it's been our personal goal as the Institute is to become more engaged in the community, you guys, seeking more input from you. And the best thing I can tell you is to learn how to talk and do your elevator speech. Talk about the good things that you do to your senator, to your representative, to your borough council, to your township supervisors. Okay. Be open and honest if you have challenges in your fire department. Say you've got this concept that you're working on to try to get more youth involved, and it's going to need you to vote for changing the child labor law. It's something that I promise you is we're going to do our best to vet this and make this something good. But that continuing engagement, and I'll be honest, the fire service has not done a good job in certain areas of communicating the positivity of the things that they do. And we only see the bad things that are in the news sometimes with fire departments. And there's plenty of good things that are going on. Just last week, there was all the flooding incidents in eastern Pennsylvania. And a lot of those were, very dramatic rescues and stuff like that. And we make an impact. Everybody, one thing that I want to say too is a lot of people think the fire service in Pennsylvania is on life support. And if you talk negative, who wants to join the Titanic volunteer fire department? Or who wants to be involved in that? And the more positivity that youth can get involved in an organization that has their act together. Some of you mentioned about, the physical fitness concept of it, which is extremely important. We need people to be able to do that. The camaraderie that's involved is extremely important. The teamwork and the life skills. And one thing that I do like to say when people are talking about, how many of you had had the opportunity to, write letters of recommendation for people that have been juniors in your organization? I've heard from you in this room of your juniors that have gone on to be officers, and think of all the other things that these people might become in the years, over the years. There's several members of the House and Senate that have been volunteer firefighters, and one or two that have been junior firefighters, so they understand that. I certainly appreciate the work and the feedback that you have done. If you have more ideas, don't hesitate to email me and give me more feedback on that. Probably somewhere in mid-September that we'll get together again in mid-September and discuss this. So with that, that's my closing comments. Frank, do you have any closing comments at all?
No, I just want to thank everybody for participating. I think we're off to a good start. There's some great ideas. And it sounds like a lot of people are interested in changing not only the law, but the future of the fire service. And we need to stay focused. I think a key point you said, Jerry, is we need to sell it. And you and I both know when we're sitting in that Capitol building, we have to be the most important people walking in the door. So I think it's a great start. I'm looking forward to working with everybody.
Thank you very much, and have a good night and stay safe.